Hello and welcome to another episode of Supercoach Insider. My name is Chris and welcome to the end round 7, start of round 8 team podcast. I'm getting into this one obviously solo. Probably the most important week in Supercoach. I think it's pretty important for a lot of teams. A lot of rookies to come in, a lot of rookies that are looking at potentially coming in next week. So decisions you make this week on your team will definitely have an impact moving forward. And it's pretty critical, I think, in looking at my team and thinking, oh, if I do this and this, then everything else will be shit the bed essentially for next week. So pretty cool. But before we get all to that, obviously find us on our socials at SC Insider 100 on Twitter, Facebook. Search for Supercoach Insider and all major podcast platforms as well at SC Insider 100. It's gone pretty well. Thank you to our sponsors as well, Splash Vodka and EarnU.io. We've got kicking off with another major sponsor next week, so I'm pretty excited about that. So keep an eye out for that, guys. So my week this week, on the surface, pretty decent without being amazing. Like 24.52 was my final score. There was obviously a lot of high scores, so I did pop out, unfortunately, to a season rank of 14.23, which was a slight drop, down 441 outside the top 1,000 again, so I will make my way back there, but a few different things that happened last week, and I made a few changes to my team last minute. It somehow made my team better, and then this week it's sort of gone backwards on me. So that's a bit unfortunate, but we'll see how we go. Now, if we get into what I did, I suppose the big thing was I went into this week with the huge plan, the main plan really, of I wanted to trade in Alex Witherden. Clayton Oliver, and instead I went with Alex Witherden. Now, the main reason for that was based on the rookies that I could field. I was hoping to get a bit of an edge on Clayton Oliver. Now, I also wanted to go with Max Gawn. For those of you who were listening to our pod last week, you would have noticed that, obviously I'm not the biggest fan of Max Gawn, but I knew that last week he was probably going to go big, so I did want to get him in, but I just didn't have the cash to be able to do that transaction. I was actually 4K shy of being able to get Max Gawn in last week, so decided against it, obviously, and I knew that was going to happen, so I braced for impact, and of course the impact was pretty big, but it is what it is. So, moving forward, I was looking at Clayton Oliver. That was going to be my number one. I think he scored 119, and Alex Witherden scored 97, but what it did allow me to do was to field Nick Martin at F6 instead of Roses, so I actually gained about 30 points on field. By getting with it in and the way that the rookies all structured up, etc. So it wasn't too bad. Obviously, Roses was the other one that I brought in. And who else did I bring in? I think there was 3, wasn't there? I was able to hold Rao, which obviously helped. Oh, and of course Hayes, which is 53. Another thing we said about Hayes in the podcast last week was that we didn't expect him to score very well this week, but his ruck run starts from now. So obviously Ryder, very good tap ruckman, was going to restrict him anyway. This week, moving forward, he either has Steph Martin or he's got Tim English this week, depending on how English comes in. Then next week he probably has Golding now, which is or CCJ, whichever is going to be the primary ruck next week. No, that's wrong. I'm looking at. Let's have a look at Semi Hayes here. Sorry, I don't know why that did that. Moving into his run. Internet's being slow today again. There we go. Yeah. I was right. So North next week, and then Reece Stanley, Sam Draper, and then the Soldo Nank combination, and then whoever's at Sydney at that point, probably Hickey's back. So by round 14, he's obviously got quite a few, but we really want to just try and get him to the buys and probably trade him at that round 12. But we'll see, or potentially even hold him to round 14 to cover those other rucks in that line. So we'll see how we go. I'm not overly upset. I'm going to give him at least another round on as my R2. And that kind of does depend on what I do this week. We'll sort of weigh that up. I've got a few directions to go. I've looked at about 100 different trade scenarios. I'm fairly confident that I want Darcy Cameron in this week. So I've looked at a way to get Gorn by round 14, and I think that my avenue there is probably going to be Darcy Cameron. So a couple of things that we know is he's a forward only right now, but he'll probably get that ruck forward position availability switch at the round, I think it's round 11 or round 12, when those become the next round DPPs come through. So he'll be able to be ruck forward, which means I can swing him into the ruck line there, and I can just direct swap him for Gorn for probably, I'd say maybe 150k. So just one down, one up is the likely scenario there. And that's how I'm looking at doing it. I've held on to Dixon this week because I do think that, with obviously Stranadika is down with COVID. So Dixon's actually going to be the primary ruck. I don't think Williams is back yet from injury, obviously. So he's probably going to be sole ruck, which means that even though he's probably going to get dominated, he'll probably still score well, or at least half decent. So I want to give him a chance. He's got a break even of 47. I want to give him a chance to reset his cash gen, but if not, then I'm probably going to be trading him next week to either Stranadika or to Aiden Begg. Is it Aiden Begg? Yeah, it is. Now, the thing with Begg is I'm also looking at him next week. He's scored an 81 this week, and he scored really, really well. But didn't even get many hitouts. He only played 2 hitouts. His most of his points came from his second contest efforts and around the ground. He also kicked a goal as well. But that's really what they want from him. That's why he's in the team and not Mason Cox. Because Mason Cox played in the VFL. He had like 21 touches, kicked 3 goals, and was dominant in the VFL. So there is a worry that obviously, Coxie will take that spot. But the reason why Cox isn't in there is that they really want a mobile second ruck. They do not want to run with a lumbering second ruck like a Mason Cox, which is unfortunately the problem. So even though at VFL level he's firing, I think that they're going to persist with Begg at AFL level until he shits the bed, essentially. So I'm looking at him because he'll probably also get ruck forward eligibility at that round 12, and then you can easily swap him. So he has that slight benefit over Stranadika, even though it's obviously 20k cheaper. Now, of course, Witherden's come down with COVID this week, so that great plan that I had last week kind of went out the window this week because I'm going to be playing a premium down on most of the competition. So I try to get a leg up, and down we go. So that's one thing I've got to worry about. Now, I can, of course, loop McCartan into DeConing, which is likely what I'm going to be doing. O'Driscoll's gone for me this week. He's reached his, I think he's reached his peak price for now. He can probably make a little bit extra cash, but he's the most likely rookie that I have with the best amount of cash to be able to trade. So he's gone this week. As I said, I'm going to be keeping Hayes. The ones that I'm looking at moving on, potentially Josh Ward, but again, he probably is back this week because he was only managed last week. So I assume it's just a rest up because he's a rookie and probably back this week. If he does not come back, I will be trading him. That's guaranteed. Connor McDonald, a low break even again. I think it's back down to 30 from memory. Let's just have a quick squiz. Break even, back down to 30, yeah. So, I mean, he's got a chance to make a little bit more cash again. Played half decent, scored a couple of goals. Obviously, Roses and Baldwin have started making cash, so I'll be keeping them as well. Hayes has just started making cash, so I'll be keeping him. So now, the one that's probably going to go this week anyway is Matt Rowell. Now, I'd like to not trade him, but we'll see how we go. The only way that I can really get to an Uber premium is by trading Matt Rowell because of the catch situation. I've only got 84k. It's not really enough. And I'm probably going to have to make 3 trades, which I'm okay with. Got to use these boosts while you've got them. So my options are my in targets for my Uber premium. Now, the first one that I looked at was obviously Clayton Oliver because I still don't have Clayton Oliver. Unfortunately, what Clayton Oliver leaves me with the ins that I'm looking at, is it leaves me with having to loop one of, Nick Martins will probably be on my bench in my midfield, and then I've got Clark on field at M8. Now, that's not necessarily the worst thing, but I'd rather play Nick Martin on a field. I'd rather try and maximise that, especially when I've got he's obviously the best rookie available right now, averaging 91. So if I can try and get him on field, that's my goal. If I trade in any midfielder, I'm unfortunately, unless I can somehow keep Martin forward, which is not going to happen if I want Darcy Cameron, which is another in that I'm looking at, and I'll explain that later. Unfortunately, there's just no way to do that with Nick Martin. So it's either trade in a forward or trade in a defender. Now, the benefit of trading in a defender is that I don't have to rely on McCartan or DeConing's scores, which obviously worked last week. Tried to make a play against the competition, by not having to be forced into taking De Koning's score. He goes and pops an 77, and then I took the score anyway. So, yeah, okay. Another thing that didn't really go my way, but we try to play percentages. We try to get little gains where we can. So I will be. So if I trade in a defender, my defenders will be capped at 6. Obviously, Luke Ryan will be at D6, and then I would look to trade, say, Luke Ryan or Stewart in round 14, which is my long-term play. So I would have 6 defenders, but at least I cover with it in this week. Now, if I do that, then the other thing that's a bit of an issue is Dacos. So do I trade Nick Dacos this week? Or does that mean that next week that Nick Dacos is stuck at D7 with no defender rookie downgrade, and I have to hold him at basically D7 for the foreseeable future until he's bye, pretty much. Or the alternative is trade Dacos this week, bank the cash while I can trade out a defender, and then go from there. So there's a couple of little idiosyncrasies that I'm looking at there. If I'm looking at trading a defender, the likely scenario is I'm looking at Doherty. I like Stewart as well as an option, and I do have the cash to get to Stewart, but I just feel like as a long-term play, paying over 600k for Stewart is not the right thing right now. I think you're just chasing that 187, which is probably not going to happen. So looking more at Doherty and less at Stewart at this point. However, that may change later in the week. If I'm going for a forward, the only reason why I would do a forward this week is because I want English. And there's 2 reasons why I want English this week. The first one is he's playing Friday night. Now, they said it's unlikely to play, but they're giving him a chance Friday night. So he probably has a fitness test on Friday. He might even get named on Thursday, by the way. But it'll be a touch and go situation on Friday night whether they play him because they have the early game. They announced that last week, and they've held that strong this week. If for whatever reason I decide, okay, I'm going to go that way, and I am going to go to English, part of the reason is that next week there looks like there's an abundance of rookie options. It might even be a triple downgrade week for me. So 3 downgrades, bank cash, and then double up the next. That could be a viable solution. However, I don't necessarily want to run with another 2 weeks of no English. So bringing in English will give me a bit of flexibility, obviously, in the ruck line. It'll let me transition out of Sam Hayes next week if he scores again poorly. I don't want to be running him on field. So next week I'll be I'm moving English into the ruck line to be able, then I'll run English and Bruce, and then still run the rookies in the forward line there. So bringing in English is ideal. That's what I'd like to do. Then I would obviously have to loop McCartan and SDK in the back. Bring in Doherty. Now then I've got 2 options. I can either hold Dacos and play him on field, or I could loop McCartan and trade Dacos and bank that extra cash this week. Or I can trade out a mid and get in a Petraka and do it that way. Now, I can go Oliver, but if I go Oliver, then I can't bring in Darcy Cameron, which is the other one that I'm looking at. And as I said, it's my gateway to get Gorn later during the buy. So he'll be able to play through the buys, and then I'll trade him out in round 14, and that'll give me enough cash to get to Gorn. I mean, even if in that week I actually trade him to Gorn, which is not likely because I probably want the points on field, depending on how many premiums I've got that week, it'll give me enough cash in that whole scheme of things to be able to get Gorn round 15, which will be ideal. So that's what I'm looking at the moment. Cameron, I think, is a guy that can probably average anywhere between 85 to 100 while Grundy's not in the team, and he's priced at just over 300k. And I think that's not a bad little option. So, yeah, I think moving forward, I'm looking at it heavily. It's no guarantee that I will do it. I just think that it's a good play. I'm probably going to make 100k on that trade anyway. I think he'll probably be worth about, let's call it somewhere between the realm of 400 to 450 by the time I want to trade him. And it's going to be a good on-field option at F6 for the foreseeable future. He's already shown in his past that he's been able to average close to 100 as the solo ruck. And I think that he's actually a good ruckman. So one of the things I really like about Darcy Cameron and why he's been able to be held in the Collingwood side for so long is he's actually a really good ruck that can play forward. But he's just never been able to, with Grundy there, he's never been able to have that number 1 ruck role. And now he's got an extended period of time to be able to show, especially for Supercoach purposes, what he can do. And I'm really excited to see that moving forward. And hopefully he can continue his strong performances because he's been clunking contested marks, he's been kicking goals, but he's also getting tap outs and helping out at the contest. And I really like Darcy Cameron. So I think that could be a really good F6 for the foreseeable future. It also allows me to play Nick Martin at, say, either and Clark at M7, M8 as my last two rookies that I'll be trading out. Nick Martin is one that I'm looking to just try and capitalize on with his break even. So yeah, I think he's got a -1 break even. Yep. So depending on what he scores this week and depending on what his break even is next week, I could look to actually trade him out because I think he probably goes up to that sort of 385 mark, 380. And then at that point, unless you're using him on field, there's not really much point in keeping Nick Martin. And if he's not on field for you, you can probably cash him out then. I think he caps out 400-ish, maybe 410 as an option in terms of cash. So I might be going early on him just to get in another Uber. And if Nick Martin's in my midfield, then I can just one trade him straight away pretty much to either a track or get a 2 trade to Oliver. So it will be something that I'm heavily looking at. But I think for now, the plan is this. I'm probably going to go on early on Clark. I'm actually going to bypass McComb. Now, the big reason for that for me is week 1, didn't kick any goals, got a 37. Week 2, kicks 2 goals, gets a 63. He's playing a wing role. Yes, there is potential in that wing role that he can score well and he can average well. But based on the evidence so far, if he's not kicking goals, he's not scoring points. And I'm not interested in someone that needs to kick goals to score points, especially in a midfield spot that's lucratively going to be about to be available to someone like a Carroll, who just scored a 95 playing a wing role. So that there's a potential of that. There's also Cooper Hamilton that's mid forward. There's Maurice Rioli that's mid forward. So we've got some actual decent upgrades next week that I want to try and leave a spot open for. And if that's not going to be available, then it's not good. So I also still have Owens, unfortunately. So yeah, most people have that third mid spot that they're able to actually be flexible with. I don't. So for that, I could take the 15k on offer and just go Owens down to McComb, but I don't have the trades, and I'd rather be using on something else. So right now, obviously, Owens is my loophole. So I'll be continuing with that. So if I do what I want to do, let's go through the trade scenarios. I'm probably going to be bringing in Doherty. I think that's probably the best play. Or is it? Oh, let's do it as if I was bringing in English. Nah. I'm going to go with Doherty. Doherty's the one. All right. Or, a premium defender. And again, I can get any premium defender with the amount of money that I'm going to have, but we're just going to work it. Now, I'm going to work this as if I'm trading Dacos as well to try and capitalize on his cash. So let's try and do that too. And the other one that I'll be trading out is probably going to be Matt Rowell, I'd say. So let's trade them out. Now, my ins this week, I'm gonna throw Nick Martin into that midfield mix, and I'm going to go get the following guys. All right, so first one is Clark. Craig Clark, he can stay at on field for now, at least a week on field. I mean, they're obviously going to play Brisbane, but there's a chance he plays inside mid because Luke Shuey's out again with an injury, and West Coast have been absolutely decimated with injuries and COVID this week. So it's going to be more of the same. Clark's going to have a huge opportunity in that midfield to score well, even though they're likely going to get absolutely pumped, which is why a little bit of a preview. I'm definitely going to be captaining Neil this week. So the next one is Doherty. And the next one is Darcy Cameron. All right, so let's confirm those trades. How do we do that? Complete trade. So it leaves me with 173k in the bank for upgrades moving forward. As I said, with a potential double or triple downgrade options next week, that's going to put me in good stead to get 2 premiums in the next couple of weeks. So that leaves my forward line with rookie free. I'm going to be running Martin and Clark in my midfield. And then obviously we've got Witherden here. So I will be running the emergency on McCartan because he plays just the game before Geelong, and I can actually loop him with Witherden. So that will be my play this week. In midfield, I'll obviously be probably get on Ward. I do think Ward probably plays this week. And there we go. So it means I've only got Hayes, obviously, is a rookie on field, and then Clark and Martin. Those are going to be my only 3 rookies next week. Actually, next week I'll be upgrading one of them. So I'll probably upgrade Martin to English. Obviously, I'll move, say, a Canelio into the midfield next week and get English or something like that. And then 2 downs. But we'll see how we go. But yeah, looking good for the team. Again, it's weird because I was really gung ho on capping out my midfield as quickly as possible with the best possible upgrades, and I'm still looking at getting obviously Oliver and Track in, and I've been trying to do that for the last few weeks. But obviously the mids I have are good anyway. That I've got 6 of the best mids that you can possibly get. I mean, outside of say Mills, Oliver, there really isn't much else that I don't have. Brayshaw's the other one that is a potential there, but I figure Brayshaw and Track, I don't know who's better at the moment. They're probably about the same. So yeah, Oliver and Mills would be ideal if I could finish my midfield out like that. But with Clark and Martin in there, it's not the worst thing. And before we had really bad mid rookies. I was running Ward, people running JHF. I had Jackson Mead on field. Now my mid rookies are good. So it's kind of reversed my thinking to try and upgrade those other spots, especially because I'm going to be 1 premium down defense this week, to try and utilize that if I can. So bringing that premium, there goes defense until the buys. Don't have to worry about it. Forward line is set until the buys. Don't have to worry about it. Probably still bring in English, obviously, but he can be in the ruck. He can be in the forward. He's a bit flexible. And then look to get the best possible mids with the remaining cash that I have. And I've got guys to trade like Nick Martin. I've got Josh Ward still making cash. Hugh Dixon will make a bit of cash. I've got 170k in my bank. So I'm in a pretty good spot to get the best possible team available. And then whatever I have on the way home, I'll be looking at transferring that into Max Gawn and get Hayes to Max Gawn via Cameron and then move English forward. So that is my short and long-term plan. Now, as I said, I'll be definitely captaining Lockie Neal, and the vice is probably going to sit on Josh Dunkley this week, just in case he just goes absolutely mental. But obviously that's a Friday night game. I need to try and capitalize that. Owens is kind of useless. I would have liked to have VC'd Neal and then tried to use Owens on Sunday, but it's not really going to work that way, unfortunately, just with the way that the VCs and Cs line up. So, and I'm very, very comfortable going just straight captain on Lockie Neal this week. So VC Dunkley, C on Neal, and Dunkley would have to go 140 for me to take it, if I'm completely honest. Neal's on a heater. He's unstoppable. West Coast look absolutely terrible. They don't have a ruck. They don't have a midfield. They lost their tagger in Jackson Nelson. It's going to be a whitewash. Neal all the way, in my opinion. Now, this was a bit long-winded, so I do apologise about that. But again, if you have any questions, guys, hit us up at SC Insider 100 on Twitter or Facebook. And I look forward to hearing from everyone. Catch you later. Bye-bye.